Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is our final edition of the Maroon Devil Coaches Show with our head coach, Sherman Holt. And, Coach, it's hard to believe that, we started this way back when it was 90 degrees and warm, and now we're looking at frost on the pumpkin, so to speak. But our Maroon Devil football team, I think, looking back, we just showed leaps and bounds of improvements with this year's football team. I think that says a lot about you and your coaching staff and these players because they really rebounded well, I think, this year.
Yeah, and I commend that to our seniors. They did a real good job of, leading not only vocally but just by example. And, we had a real good group of seniors, 11 of those guys that just – they showed up every day. They worked. They were very coachable, fun kids to be around. And I told them Friday night, this has been my favorite group that I've got to coach since I've been here at Swain, just because of just their attitudes and just the type of people they are. And that was, we're going to miss those guys. And unfortunately, it's over, and you never want it to end. But there's only going to be one team happy in 2A, and that'll be in a couple of weeks. But it's one of those things where our kids, after a rough year last year, they had a lot of people doubting them, and a lot of people that thought that they had kind of, I guess, lost their mojo, you could say. And then we come in, and those guys, they work hard in the off season in the summer, and had a really good year as far as just how we bounced back from a year that was really, really tough. And we played a really tough schedule this year.
Oh boy!
Everybody we played made the playoffs. Everybody but one that we played won a playoff game. And so that's something that, people sometimes they look at your record and they say, well, but we played 3 teams out of conference that are still playing.
Yep.
And, 2 teams in conference that are still playing. And so 5 of the 10 teams that we played are still playing in the playoffs in the 3rd or 4th round. So that's something to, not be disappointed in, how we finished as far as who we played, because we played a pretty tough schedule. But it's just one of those things where, when it gets to this time of year and it ends, it's never a good feeling. You always kind of, hate to take up the equipment and clean the locker room out and stuff. But it's one of those things where I am going to miss those guys, those seniors, but going to remember them as well, because what a group. I mean, you look at, Drew Cody, what he has done for us, offensively this year, getting him back healthy. We've seen, kind of what he was able to do for us on the offensive side of things. And then defensively, he's probably one of the best safeties in the league. Losing Zeke at the end too, just kind of, it was hard for us to, have some offensive continuity, but, what Zeke does for our team, and, Drew Skaggs and Trenton Jones up front, just, those 2 guys work hard, and they're just kind of they're more of the vocal leaders, and that for us, it's going to be hard to replace those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Not only what they do on the field, but what they did off the field, what they did in the weight room, what they did in the locker room. And, Silas Stanberry give you everything he had and then some, and you always got, a spectacular play or a catch or something, from him that nobody thought anything, So it's just those guys that just kind of went above and beyond and truly symbolize our best and then some. And that, I think John Stevenson, what a great kid and what a season he had. He ended up with like 20-something catches for almost 300 yards receiving, took on the role of kicking about week 2 or 3 and, won us a game at Mountain Heritage, kicking the football. And so just those guys that just say, whatever we need to do, we'd do it. And that's kind of what that senior class embodied. Didn't matter what you wanted them to do, they'd go do it. And, Corey Stillwell, I can just go on about all of them. He's been a 3-year starter for us. Ended up he broke his foot Friday in that game, but ended up he had like 5 other fractures that were old that, had calcified already. And so just the toughness that he showed to, miss no games this year, and just one of those things where for us it's going to be a important part of our off season to replace what those seniors did for us. Because I mean, the list goes on. You can talk about them all day long. And, but just what they mean to the program and what they exhibited every single day, that represents what our program's about. It represents Swain County, not only our football program, but our school. Those kids are leaders. They're good people. And it's one of those things that you want to make sure everybody knows how important they are. And, I can look back. I told Hunter Williamson Friday night after the game, he's a kid that come in as a freshman, and I don't think he played any plays as a freshman on our JV football team. And then, becomes a starter for us in his senior campaign and done a real good job. And it was a testament to how hard he worked, in the weight room in the off season, just changing his body, getting stronger, getting faster. And that's what our program's built off of, is just kids that work hard and that are tough. And, I don't want their efforts to go unnoticed, even though it's not the result we want in the end, but don't want those guys to feel like that they wasn't successful, because they were. And they've won a lot of games while they've been here and been a part of some good memories here at Swain County High School.
No doubt. And Coach, you look back, as you mentioned, looking ahead to next year, got a good group of JV football players coming up. They had a great season, but again, you've got to have some of these juniors now to step into that senior leadership role, because as you know, and I think all successful football teams understand, that senior leadership is so important to your football team, isn't it?
Yeah, it's what, it kind of sets you up for success or failure, depending on how good your senior leadership is. And not only, in August when it starts, but for us, our off season, we're going to give them a couple weeks off right here, and we're still going to lift and do all that stuff, but just kind of let them recuperate from the season. But when we come back from Christmas, that's when you get in that weight room right there, and those mornings are tough.
Yeah.
And you kind of start figuring out who's going to be a leader, in January and February. And so that's important, and people don't realize how continual it is. They think, well, football season's over. It don't start till August of next year. It never stops. No. Taking care of your body, getting bigger, getting faster, getting stronger, whatever you got, more explosive, whatever you need to work on, that never stops as far as how you train your body, how you train your mind. And so for us, coming in after Christmas break, that'll be when we kind of really start getting for our 26 campaign, and so it's important. And those guys, they got to be identified pretty early. You can't just wait till August to say, all right, who's our leaders, but they normally identify themselves. It's the ones that don't miss. It's the ones that work hard. It's the ones that, hold their teammates accountable.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not easy being a leader, because you got to be the guy that calls your teammates out if they miss a workout or whatever, So those guys pretty much kind of take care of themselves, and they'll rise up and they'll identify themselves. But looking forward to what our kids can do next year. And you mentioned those JV teams that we've had. We've had 2 years undefeated JV program, so those kids will be juniors and sophomores for us. And so some of those guys, we're looking for them to really step up. Really have a good off season, grow, develop. Biggest thing from what I see from Thursday to Friday is you got to get stronger.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. And then just speed of the game. Yeah. It's a whole lot faster on Fridays than it is on Thursday. Everybody's a little bigger. Everybody's a whole lot stronger. And just the dynamic of it's a little different. But, we're looking forward to getting those guys and, seeing what they do in the off season. And, there's good times ahead because, we've got a pretty good group coming. Just got to create some depth, That way, if we do run across the injury bug, we got a little depth, because that's kind of what hindered us the past couple of years, is we've had some really unfortunate injuries to kids that we just couldn't replace.
Oh, no doubt.
And so that'll be the biggest thing for us in the offseason.
Oh, no doubt. Fans, stay tuned. We'll come back and talk more about Maroon Devil football after these great messages.
Become a member of MDN Live. For the low price of $5.99 per month, you will have access to all live broadcasts of Maroon Devil athletics. All proceeds from this subscription service will go directly towards Swain Athletics to help offset the growing cost of providing multiple sporting opportunities for our student athletes. The monthly subscription is only $5.99 per month, giving members access to all live broadcasts within the month. This membership will have an option for automatic renewal, which can be canceled at any time. Our hope is that patrons will let their monthly subscriptions continue throughout the year, providing Swain High School athletics with a greatly needed source of funding year-round and give you access to all the great sports action throughout the year. So for less than the cost of a kid's meal at your favorite fast food joint, you'll be providing critical support to our student athletes each month while enjoying countless hours of Swain County Athletics Live. It's truly a win-win situation. Become a member today and do your part to help keep Swain County Athletics the best it can be.
Fans, welcome back. As again, it's a gorgeous day here at Swain County High School, and talking football with head coach Sherman Holt. And coach, I know the season's over, and it is kind of a hard thing for a few days to realize, hey, there's no practice today. Wow, the whole schedule changes for you and these kids as well. Of course, some of these kids are going to probably jump right into basketball here pretty soon, and good luck to them. And these kids who are banged up, I hope they can get better so they can go on to that next sport and just be better physically.
Yeah, that's I always challenge them when our season's over to get involved in another sport, and several of our guys are basketball players. Yeah. We've got probably 5 or 6 wrestlers, 3 or 4 indoor track athletes. And so it's one of those things where for most of our kids, it ends for football and it jumps right into something else, which is a good thing, especially at a school like Swain is, you got to have all those kids do everything. And so most of our kids are going into a winter sport. They might get a day or two here to kind of rest and recuperate, but most of them are needed elsewhere, I guess, for lack of better terms. But, it's good. I get excited to watch our kids play other sports. I love watching them get on the wrestling mat and compete, and I love watching them play basketball, and I love watching them in track, run, because all those things kind of correlate back to football, So it's all kind of hand in hand and supporting each other and supporting each sport. And so it's one of those things where these kids, most of them, they don't really get to slow down. They just go right to the next thing. And, for us as coaches, we got a handful of coaches that jump to a winter sport. I think my wife said it best the other day. We seen somebody on Saturday, and she said, well, he'll get to move back in now because I'm not gone or at work all the time. And so just spending time with my family, is a good thing. We want to always play, but if that ain't the way it works, you always want to take time to kind of rejuvenate and reflect and see where we can get better. So, for us as coaches, we'll analyze here in a couple of weeks and, what can we do better? What do we need to change? And we'll have our meetings with our kids of, this is where we got to have you next year. We'll do that after Thanksgiving, and those kids can kind of think about that for a month, before we start in January, because we're going to have guys move around maybe, or what positions they might play might change, and you always want them to try to gain a little weight, get a little stronger. That's always a goal. So that's kind of where we're at now as coaches. We're going to analyze, how our season was, review all that. Where can we make improvements? What are some things that we did really good? We really need to focus on keeping that there and maybe raising the bar somewhere else, and so it's always an ongoing process. But for me, I like to just spend a little more time with my family, because they sacrifice a lot for me to be able to do what I enjoy doing. And so that's one of those things that I always kind of look forward to, no matter when it happens, is spending time with my kids and getting to watch them do their stuff, and being a little more present at home. And that's always important. So that's kind of where we're at in this part of the season. And it's always kind of hard that first Monday when you come in and you don't have to go to practice. It's tough, and but life goes on. The sun comes up. We live to see another day, and we just got to continue to work to get better. It's an ongoing process, and even if you win a state championship, you get a few weeks off, basically, and then in January it starts again. Because I tell our kids all the time, it's not what you did yesterday or what you did last year or the year before. It's what you're going to do today. Right. It's what you're going to do this year. And so no matter how it ends for anybody, I think anybody that's trying to be, at their best, the season ends, whether you lose or you win, you think, all right, we get a few weeks, we got to reset, we got to refocus, and how are we going to achieve our goals in 2026? And so that for us is how we kind of approach it, and just looking forward to seeing our kids compete in our other sports, and it'll be here before you know it again. August will be roll around, it'll be 9 degrees, and me and you will be talking again. So we don't want to wish it away, because it'll be here before you know it. But going to take some time off, a few weeks, and just kind of spend time with some family.
Oh, no doubt. Fans, we appreciate. I want to thank Coach Holt for always joining us here, and of course Joe Holt always behind the camera. All the great guys who Coach White and Cody, Coach Rod White and Cody White and Jeff Barr and Ryan and Billy Jenkins, I think, joined the group there on Friday night. Jeff Barr, all the people, and of course all our great sponsors who make all this possible. Everybody who was a part of the Maroon Devils Network, thank you, and we look forward to the next round right here on the Maroon Devils Network.